morning, everybody, and welcome to the our latest episode of Cisilion Live. Slight different approach this week. We are joined by two very special guests, so you won't have to listen to me ramble on for 30 minutes. So I'm joined today by James Davis, who's the Head of Innovation for North East London NHS Commissioning Support Unit. It's a bit of a mouthful, and also the Royal Free NHS Trust, and also Chris Huntingford, our Microsoft partner technical strategist and architect who will be taking part in this call today. You all know me. My name is Rob Quickenden, Chief Strategy Officer here at Cisilion, and the topic today really is to introduce everybody on the call who isn't aware of some of the innovations that we're seeing with the Microsoft Power Platform, in particular around the health services, but also across a number of other sectors. And I appreciate there's a lot of people here today on these calls from other areas. So before I hand over to my guests, I wanted just to do a very brief introduction, my 10,000 foot view, if you like, to Power Platforms. But for those that aren't aware of it, introduce Chris, and I'm going to ask Chris to give a slightly deeper view and some examples. So for those that don't know, Power Platform is part of the Microsoft 365 suite. It kind of sits between Microsoft 365 and the Dynamics platform, and is really comprised of four key products. So that's the Power Apps platform, Power Automate, which used to be Flow, Power BI, and what Microsoft call Power Virtual Agents. And essentially, Power Platforms is a set of services and tools that enables organizations to do three actions, I guess, on data that helps you drive efficiencies within business. First one is around gaining insights from data, so analyzing data and helping you to make intelligent decisions based on that data from multiple different sources. Drive those intelligent business processes via applications that you can build yourselves using, again, what's termed in the industry now as low code or no code. So almost drag and drop and pull connectors together. And of course, automate those business processes through what's called Microsoft Flow and now Automate. And I guess kind of what we're seeing really is regardless of the sector that you work in, or even what your specific role or job is, we are spending all of our time using data, accessing data, comparing data, and doing things with data. And we know historically that any project that involves pulling information from different data or different systems together is extremely time consuming, usually very complex, and therefore very expensive. And what we've seen sort of pre-COVID pandemic, but more so during really, is just the huge surge in the number of our customers that have been either working independently or working with us or working with Microsoft or other partners to look at how they can start leveraging a lot more of these tools that they've already got, explore some of the products that they've got that didn't really know about, and start looking at how they can integrate and pull data across from different systems that they've already got using a platform that they already use. Now, I probably haven't done that the best justice, Chris. So I'm going to hand over to you and ask you just to introduce yourself briefly. And Chris, really, if you could just give a slightly deeper overview of what I've just explained there, and kind of really see where you've seen some of the huge growth and innovation.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. So my name is Chris Huntingford. I'm a partner technical architect at Microsoft. So basically my role is to talk to partners and customers about all the cool nerdy stuff out there, like all the technology, which is really awesome. So Rob, I mean, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. But one of the things I want to tell you all is that when I talk to organizations, and I have chatted to lots of healthcare orgs and home builders and things like that, and what I discovered was that a lot of them buy these SaaS solutions. So what will happen is that, they'll go out, they'll have a problem like maybe doing patient management or home inspections or, whatever you'd like. They'll go out and buy these SaaS products, and the SaaS product fills the digital gap by about 75%, right? And we started noticing that there needed to be another mechanism or tool that needed to fill those digital gaps within organizations. Now, what we discovered was that when we walked in, all these SaaS solutions basically did a great job, but we needed a layer on top of them, and that's where the Power Platform comes in. So from a departmental perspective, when you implement a SaaS solution, often you end up having to integrate to other SaaS solutions within the organization. That also costs you big shiny bucket loads of earth money, right? So you basically have to make sure that solutions talk to each other. The Power Platform provides you with that base that lives underneath that as well. So basically what you can do is implement one platform, many apps, and have those applications tightly integrated without having to pay lots of money to do that. The other thing that's really interesting about the Power Platform, Rob mentioned the concept of being able to analyze and interact with data. A lot of people confuse the Power Platform with just apps and just the ability to build apps, and it's not that. Applications are a byproduct of data. So what we do from the Power Platform perspective is we empower the low-code, no-code developer, so somebody in the organization that's really good at building applications. I'm going to use healthcare as an example. If you have a social care worker that's visiting somebody at their home, what will typically happen is they understand the process of interacting with that person. So they are the best person to build the solution. You're going in your head right now, well, Chris, that's going to create absolute mayhem in my organization. Absolutely not. What we do is we take this business side of the world and we basically bring it together with IT. So we provide IT with the digital guide rails to manage those solutions. Let me tell you something very quick before I hand over, is that organizations typically don't know that they have a lot of shadow IT going on. So what will happen is that they'll assume that people aren't downloading weird stuff off the net to fulfill their solutions or fulfill their needs. And the business do. They will download strange things like Zoho CRM. Now, let me tell you something. What the Power Platform does is enables visibility from an IT perspective. The terms I want to give you is better a government free market you know than a black market you don't know. So what we do is we empower the citizen developers to build solutions that are governed by IT and managed IT and respect the data at rest. Rob, does that give a good enough intro to what we're doing here?
It does, and thank you. And I think I absolutely love that last point you made there about the empowering the citizen developers. And I think, as I hand over to James, and apologies that we can't see James today. We've got some weird issues where James, for some reason, couldn't join the video part of this call. So I do apologise. I think we have a nice photo of James to put up, which I'm sure he'll crucify me for after this call. But I think, James, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, and I think that the point of citizen developers for you is a really great intro point, I think, to where your journey with Power Platform started.
Thanks, Rob. Hello, everybody. As you can only hear me over audio, I want you to take a trip with me in your mind's eye and just imagine that my background is even more awesome than Chris's. All right, I've got more Lego, I've got more band equipment, and I look even cooler. So it's lovely to see everybody. I head up innovation at North and East London Commissioning Support Unit. What does that mean? Commissioning Support Unit, there's 5 of us in the country, and we assist NHS organisations with all manner of things from clinical through to non-clinical services. As an organisation, we look after about 16 million of the population. We handle roughly around 8% of the NHS budget, the national NHS budget, and we manage contracts to the value of about £10 billion. So we do quite a significant amount of work to support the system. Within North and East London CSU, we have Nell Healthcare Consulting, which is our consulting arm of the business, which also provides an agile resource pool for organisations that need support in rolling out digital campaigns or need PMO or back office support also. As part of that, I sit housed within Nell Healthcare Consulting, heading up in care of something that we call the Innovation and Digital Board at the CSU. And the INDB cuts across our entire organisation, is made up from people across every strand of our business. And that is because we believe that the greatness and the richness of innovation comes from our people. And we like to take the opportunity to harvest those opinions and let everybody around the table have their say. And that was the case when we went to the Cisilion offices and they hosted us for a kind of a hackathon into the Power Platform. At this point, I hadn't even opened Power Apps. I had no idea about it whatsoever. I didn't understand what the term CDS meant. I had no idea how it all plugs in. I'd used a bit of Power BI over the time. And of course, like everybody, had my arms wrapped around Office 365 and could do my Microsoft Word and pivot tables on Excel. And that was about it, really, when it came to the Microsoft offering. But what that day done for us, it gave us the opportunity to understand that terrible cliche, the art of the possible, and to see what the platform could do. It was facilitated by a couple of Microsoft MVPs. Megan was particularly fantastic, and Rob as well. And it helped us to take some of the ideas around the table from my colleagues that come from backgrounds of social care, mental health, as well as BI and analytics, and see what it is we could do with those ideas and how we could turn them very quickly into an application using Power Apps. So after that session, I went away really enthused. We all did. And we spun up a Padlet board that helped us to be able to gather all these ideas. And we must have had about 20, 30 odd different ideas about how we could use the platform. So from that, we went and I started having a play around with Power Apps, doing some really simple stuff, just how it is that you could interrogate some basic data. And to do that, I used Sharepoint Lists, which I'd, again, never used before. Why would you? Maybe there's people on this call that use it regularly. And it was SharePoint Lists that powered my first couple of Power Apps. And then it got to the point where, after learning the ropes a little bit and exploring what was possible, I began then to reach out into the Power Apps community. It was really helpful because there's such a strong community that can pretty much answer any of those basic and learner questions that I came up with time and time again. But it was definitely the kind of platform that once you realized what you could do, you just wanted to try and do more. And that's right around the point, around March time, when COVID hit and all the great plans that I had and strategy for the year kind of went out the window.
And James, I think that's a really key point. And I think, firstly, I think you've underestimated yourself. I think for the input that you had there, I think, the team that we had on the day was fantastic. I think what was great about the session that we run with you was that we spent the morning on theory and kind of what we can do, and some great examples of what other customers have been doing in this space. But I think the afternoon was great, and I think people were a bit surprised. We called it a hackathon, but I think people were quite surprised. A lot of your team were quite surprised that once we their sandwiches and bits of quiche and stuff, that we were actually going to make them sit and build something. And I remember the look on some of their faces going, I don't do coding, I'm not a programmer, what am I all about? And I think it was great actually how you helped infuse that team. But I think a lot of it is about that team, and I think probably a question I'd ask you is how did you sell the day to them? Because it was quite a lot of ask for those people to come and see us for the day, but it was such a powerful session. So I'm really keen on kind of if you could share with our audience just what made everyone get excited to come.
Well, I suppose, when you look at the public sector, every person's time's super valuable, right? And I imagine there's some public sector people on here, and I do at times analyze the cost of meetings. So when you're taking people out the office for half of the day, you have to make sure it's valuable. The advantage I had is that the members that were invited were already part of either the Innovation Digital Board that I look after, or they were hub members. So we have our core board members, but we also open up a hub so that anybody across the organization can join. And hub members are invited to the board meeting every quarter, as well as being part of our Teams channel to put forth innovations and ideas that they may have that we can then take into production. So what I was able to do is explain to them that we have this platform within Microsoft. We pay money to Microsoft in order to use it, but we don't really leverage it. And we don't leverage it because we don't understand it. It's just a black box to us, or an icon that sits within our Office 365 tile of icons that we don't click on because we're worried about what it might do. So using that as a bit of a hook, the people in the room already had inquisitive and digitally optimized minds, as it were, to understand what we can do with the technology to improve patient outcomes ultimately. So they were more than keen to come along and join the session.
Yeah, and I think you raised a valid point there around people don't know what they've got access to, and I think we see that a lot. And the Microsoft 365 roadmap and portfolio continues to grow and expand. And I think you're right. We see across a lot of our customer base, people just don't know. Whether that's the Power Platform side, whether that's the security and compliance services, whether that's just some of the core productivity tools that people take for granted. A lot of people don't leverage and use those services. So I think it's a really valid point that particularly now, I think with COVID and everyone being a lot more aware of costs and controls and things that they're putting in place. So again, most of you on this call have probably got access to a lot of this technology. So I think it's worth taking James's advice and running it. But the point I wanted to make there, so I think on the COVID track. And I was going to not use the word good timing, because you can't use COVID and timing as a word. It's been terrible. But from where you were on the journey and the fact that we had this session beginning of February, something along those lines. But you've made leaps and bounds. So from that initial session we have with those kind of 20, 30 ideas that brought forward, would you mind just sharing a little bit about what you've been helping develop for both NEL and the Royal Free?
Yeah, sure, of course. So, I mean, everybody who's on the call or has a family member or picks up a paper will understand how stretched the health service has been in response to COVID and the pandemic. And initially at the start, me and many other colleagues, whether you're in the health service or supporting the health service, I'm sure we were all doing things we never expected we would do. And we were probably working twice as many hours, if not 3 or 4 times as many hours as we were before. But one of the things that was asked for at the centre was for organisations, arm-length bodies such as the CSU, to understand what staff they had that were able to be redeployed to either be on the front lines or support the front lines. If you're on LinkedIn and you followed Nell's LinkedIn, you will see one of our colleagues, Rob Grover's, accounted for his time supporting the Nightingale project. But to be able to understand what your staff's capabilities are, whether they're clinically trained, whether they're registered with any professional bodies, this isn't standard information that you would capture on a HR system or on ESR if you're within the NHS. So the ask was to spin up a completely bespoke platform that would capture the results of our staff that were surveyed and present it in a way that would enable a disparate team that were providing a redeployment hub support to filter and understand who could go where according to the asks across the system. And that's where I probably spun up one of my biggest power apps to date. It's gone through a number of iterations, and I spent many, many hours in getting it to where it is now, but it was a really fun journey. And what that app enabled us to do was to take information from our survey, use intelligent automation to translate and push that into the CDS, and then build out a power app which had 2 main views. So enabled us to interrogate all 1,500 staff, who they worked for, what their abilities were, what the restrictions were, if they had to shield themselves or if they had family members that they needed to care for. But also their clinical skills, so we was able to understand what they could be redeployed to and where regionally they were happy to be redeployed to. Another view was that of the assignments and the asks that were coming in from across the system, whether it was to support the deployment of PPE, standing up of the Nightingale hospitals, or supporting PMO functions, or simply just driving pharmaceuticals around London. That's where they all came into. And then the team were able to use the Power App to match our staff with the assignments and able to track them safely. So we knew where everybody was across the system at any one time. And that gave visibility to our management structure, who of course care deeply about where their staff are and if they're keeping well, and enabled everyone to keep in touch, but also produce those management level reports that are needed at an executive level. As well as that, at the Royal Free, it's slightly different. They have 10-fold more staff, 15,000 staff at the Royal Free across a number of different sites. And these are in clinical and non-clinical settings. The need there was to stand up a staff advice line so that anybody could call up and could get immediate advice on what to do next if they felt like they had symptoms, or to provide advice and let RFL know that they were shielding or they were feeling unwell, or if they needed to go and have a C19 swab to have a test. So we was able to stand that up. That was championed internally by Sharon Churchley, who heads up process over there at the Royal Free. We've been able to support over 2,500 calls into the advice line and ensure that structured and consistent data was passed through. Both of these solutions have been supported by our process automation platform. We choose to use a platform by Blue Prism Cloud. And because of the open sharing standards we have across the NHS when it comes to process automation on that platform, we were really quickly able to realise the additional help RPA can provide in the back end to the work that's being put in on Power Apps on the front. Sorry if that was a bit of a ramble, Rob.
No, fantastic. I think it's good it's been recorded and we can play it back at slow speed. So, so thank you. I was going to ask another question actually of you, Chris, if you don't mind. But we've had quite a few questions come into this. So I was going to see if we could start with a couple of questions, just kind of conscious of people's time. So. I think you can probably see some of the questions, but if I just start off with one that's come from Darren, so thank you, Darren. Was really talking about Power Platform being a great tool, but feels it can be a little bit limited when it comes to interfacing or integrating with legacy applications. Would you mind just giving a bit of update on where you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would never use the term limited. I think, out of the box, we've got 350 different connectors that allow for connection to data sources. So, I mean, if you've got Salesforce, awesome, we'll connect to it. If you've got SQL, awesome. If you've got Oracle on-prem, awesome. We have got connectors all out the box that do that automatically for you. You also have the ability to build custom connectors. So if you have a solution like open housing and you want to connect to that, write a custom connector. You don't even need to use code. Thirdly, we've got robotic process automation built into Power Automate. So if you've got a gray screen application living on-prem, awesome, we'll connect to that as well. Microsoft are a data-first organization, all right? So what we want is for you to manage your data correctly in the right data facility. So what we do is we bring that data through from your various sources, munge it together, place it into the right data facility, and then allow for correct automation and deeper reporting. That's our real goal.
So I think on that might be a good and James, I don't know whether you've got any input to anything that you've had to connect to around that, but if I could park that question and maybe link it to the next one, which is something that James you touched on. I remember you saying in the session you didn't know what CDS was. One of the other questions we've had in actually from Matt was around they've been exploring, by the look of it, some Power Apps themselves for virtual wards and asset management. Again, using Sharepoint lists. Could you give a summary, James, I guess from your point of view of how you understand common data services, and then Chris, feel free to add the technical stuff around that if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. So to touch on the first point, I think Chris is absolutely right. But I think if you spend any time in any NHS trust, you'll be blown away at the amount of, when they say legacy, I mean shocking legacy flash-based apps that are a real pain to work with. And of course, there's applications that we need smart card authentication for. That is something that also needs to be considered. Matt's point about Sharepoint Lists, I'm sure Chris or Rob can give a better explanation, but within our organization at NEL and RFL, we just create a different environment within the Power Platform, and then our CDS entities sit within that. So it ensures it's only your organization or even a subset of your organization can see that. You can wrap a number of security and grouping protocols around that to further secure that data and make sure that only the people you want to have access to that. Because you can imagine at the Royal Free, you don't want every member of staff seeing every task that's been created by people that have called in to the advice line and finding out about whether they do or don't have COVID when or they weren't swabbed, etc. So yeah, that's key, Matt. Good point.
Yeah, Go ahead. I'd like to climb on the back of that just real quick. So with CDS, we've got 5 layers of security, all the way down from Active Directory authentication down to field level obfuscation of data, which no other data facility offers. And it's very important to understand that when you've got sensitive data, you do need to pick, and I'm using the term data facility, not data source, please note, because the common data service is not a data source. There are a number of data sources underneath it, like Azure Blob, SQL, Cosmos DB. But what it means is that we serve those sources up to you in a more palatable format that you have access to. So somebody that's a super user has the ability to build out those really awesome data models securely with the right amount of referential integrity without compromising the database normalization. So that was full on geek mode, guys. I apologize.
Yeah, but I think that's a valid point, and I think the point I'd probably summarise around that is, I think the way that James and his team very much started off was through this kind of have a go, have a play, see what's possible. We've got other customers that have actually spun up completely independent Office 365 dev tenants just to kind of play with this stuff without worrying about exposing data. But I think as you start to look at this stuff more strategically, then of course security and governance comes into play, as it would with anything you were deploying, right? So security is obviously absolutely paramount. So thanks for sharing that. I think we can share some links after this with just some of the good reference materials on the Microsoft platform and things that would be useful. We've had a couple of questions actually around you can't have a discussion around Microsoft without talking about licensing. So there's a question from Debbie as well around as we built this Power App, how do we share it? What's the licensing requirements for users? Do you want to pick that one up, Chris?
Yeah, no problem. So if you're an internal user leveraging any area of the Power Platform, you do need to be licensed. If you're an external user, you can use the Power Platform portals to gain access to functionality, but you do require the Common Data Service. So I would definitely think a great idea would be to share the licensing links. The other thing is that if you're comparing apples with apples and you pick a competitive product like Salesforce Lightning, we're less than half the price of what they're offering.
So just to summarise on that, I guess if I was asking the question, I'd ask it in a slightly different way. Would be let's say we build an app, and let's make this any industry. If I built an app, I want to expose that application to my clients. How do I license that, or do I need to license that?
Yes, you do. So depending, you can license it through, depending on what you deem an app. There are 3 different types of apps. So you've got a Canvas app, which is effectively looks like PowerPoint and Excel had a love child. You've got model-driven applications, which rely on the data model in the Common Data Service. And then you've got portals, which also rely on the Common Data Service. If you want to expose functionality from the CDS, Common Data Service, outside of your org, you will need to use portals. You will need to license the connections, and it'll basically be X amount of money for X amount of users or logins. You can also license that anonymously. But yeah, anyone internal to your organization that's part of your Active Directory does need to be licensed when leveraging Power Platform functionality.
Right. Again, we'll absolutely share some of those links. And I think I'm just kind of conscious of time, so we are overrunning slightly, but just kind of keen to pick up on a couple of bits for those that can spare an extra 5 minutes before you either run off for lunch or whatever else you've got to do. James, I wanted just to ask you if you wouldn't mind giving a bit of advice to anyone. I think it seems to be quite a mix of experience and exposure to Power Platform on this webinar. What would your tips be for any organisation that's kind of either dabbled or not really looked at it at all, that are looking to start this journey?
Jump right in. Just jump right in and start. Watch some YouTube videos. Have a play. It's a safe space. But one thing I'd encourage everyone to do who's on the call or going to be chatting to people after the call: share your learning. And collaborate with those that are either within your same vertical or across the space. I'm happy to spend any time or to spin up a Teams and show people what I've made and how I've made it. No problem at all. But what's I found really important is to be laser focused on that end user experience. It can mean the difference between the adoption of the Power App that you sweated and poured blood and tears into and it not being used at all. But it's really easy to have a go at. And of course, there's experts on hand. I'll mention no names given the conference that we're on that can walk you through that journey, of course.
And Chris, would you add anything to that from what you've seen out there? I think you might be on mute, Chris.
Sorry, I was having a mute issue. Yeah, absolutely. So, I do think that the community that we have is massively strong from a Power Platform perspective. We really encourage people to reach out. I always say, get your hands dirty, build apps. The whole concept here is that anyone can do this, providing you have the right controls in place. And I would just say, reach out into the community. If you go into Twitter, and I'm not kidding about this, Twitter is the best place from a community perspective. You go and search the hashtag Power Addicts, you'll find the most amazing bunch of people there. All of the advice is free. Everyone just wants to create stuff and do cool stuff. So I'd highly recommend going on there. And also at Microsoft, we've got some really great communities. So we can always share those links afterwards. But the community is the best place. You get the best stories. You'll get the absolute truth. And I'd highly recommend you get involved. James has made a great point. Just get your hands dirty, get stuck in, and solve those digital problems that you've got.
Yeah, I think I echo that. I think we've seen some great. I think the health industry is great at this. At kind of pulling resources together. James, you work with a lot of other trusts as well, and kind of provide advice services to them. But I think I'd encourage the same for the rest of you that are in other sectors. You'll all have peers. I appreciate some of them will be competition, but you'll all have peers you can work with. The community sites are fantastic, and the hackathons are a really great way to pull people together. We've done a fair few of those, even during lockdown period. Chris, you've taken part in a couple remotely. That they've still been really good. I think it is good to try and pull people together and do a bit of whiteboarding. Certainly do a little bit of prep before. So think about some of the things that have been a challenge or continue to be a challenge that you might be considering buying a third-party product for, or paying someone to do some integration. That's always a good place to start if you've got a real challenge that you can support. Don't rule anything out. I think there's lots of that. It's okay if it's Office 365, but what about everything else? There are lots of built-in connectors, more coming every day. You can build your own. Don't think that you can't integrate to something just because it's old. You probably can, and you'll be quite surprised. So that's I think between us, that's hopefully a great set of examples. We really welcome your input as well. So I think if there's anything particular that you'd like us to share with you after this webinar, which will be ending shortly, please do drop it into the chat window, and we'll endeavour to either come back to you personally or to share it to everybody that we have your details for. I think we're probably out of time. I would like to thank everybody for attending on a Friday. I guess it's raining, so it is here. So I guess we're your best option. But thank you for joining. I hope you have found it useful. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Cisilion Live event. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Rob. Cheers, Chris.
See you all. Bye.